So this is the first axe that I ever tried to make. I'd done a lot of restoration work up until this point, made some small items, but I'd never actually tried to make a tool before. I wanted to make it as a gift for my sister-in-law. She works as a park ranger and gets me a lot of the wood I use from trees that have to come down, but I had no idea the challenge that lay before me in making this. So this is actually the third handle that I've put on this axe. The first one I cut into a tenon to fit it into the eye, and I actually undercut the tenon by mistake. Both of those things are a big no-no, I've since learned, and the handle broke almost immediately. The second one, unfortunately, the cherry was just too soft, and I didn't wedge it out hard enough at the top, and the head just gradually worked up that handle until it was sitting flush with the excess. And yeah, I probably could have saved it with a safety wedge, but I just did not want to. I want this thing to be secure and not go anywhere. So here we are, handle number 3. And to be honest, I think it's the best handle, so I'm quite pleased that the first 2 broke. Another oddity about this project is that the eye of the axe is completely straight. Usually they have an hourglass shape inside them, a taper if you will, and this lets the wedge splay out the handle at the top and firmly fix the head of the axe onto the handle so that it couldn't go anywhere, and as it tries to push up it just hits into that wood. This didn't have that, which I think is a feature of Tomahawks, but I wanted to hang it like a traditional hatchet because I wanted to do some cool carving on the handle and really just make it fit the hand nicely. So I instead opted to just mushroom out the head a lot and make sure the fit was dead on. I did a little bit of filing to kind of bring in some chamfers so it has a little bit of that taper, but mostly it's just a friction fit and then that big mushroom at the top. And to be honest, I was really surprised at how well it worked. So to make sure that axe is properly and firmly secure and isn't going to go anywhere, I'm going to use a metal safety wedge to mushroom that excess forwards and backwards as well. And that's going to make sure that the axe can't work loose gradually over time. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that usually you're meant to drill out a little bit for these metal safety wedges so that they don't completely split everything. I didn't do that. And it doesn't matter in terms of the strength of the axe, but it was a little bit annoying to have that pretty head just split everywhere. The wood filler here that I'm using isn't going to increase the strength of the axe or indeed stitch it back together at all. All it's going to do is stop any water getting into that handle and possibly messing with the inside of the eye. You just want to make sure that that's all sealed so that the axe head can't rust from the inside out or the wood fibers swell and get damaged. And the last thing to do to make sure that this axe is as good as it can be is to wrap the handle that's just below the head in a bit of leather. And that's because this axe has a big old beard on it. And what that means is that you can split a piece of wood quite comfortably with the blade that then shoots right into the handle and chips out the handle. And because this is nice soft cherry, I really want to protect it from any overstrike. The leather's not going to do a huge amount other than going to show you when you're damaging your handle and when to fix it, really. Ideally, you swap the leather when it gets too damaged and the handle is minimally affected underneath. It has the added benefit of looking really cool as well. And it's quite nice if you ever want to tuck your hand up next to the head and do any fine carving work. So I also want to put a nice leather sheath on this with a belt loop, so that if she ever wants to take it out on patrol with her, she doesn't have to worry about the axe head getting dinged or perhaps even hurting her. And this was only the second sheath I've ever made. Turns out the leather sheaths are much easier than the axe handles, I think. And if you've never made anything from leather, I would highly recommend it. It's a surprisingly simple process and fairly easy to get a result that really looks quite good. The only caveat to all this is that it is a little messy and your fingers are remarkably similar to leather. So if you're working with leather dye, I really do recommend wearing gloves. Otherwise you're going to have dyed fingers for days. So to pull everything together, I'm using something called a Chicago screw here, actually two of them, and essentially they're just big pan-headed bolt pairs that screw together and pull all of the layers of construction together nicely. And then a rosewood toggle completes that loop, and I think it just kept the rustic feel of it quite nicely. So thank you so much for joining me for that build. It means a huge amount. I think it turned out really well in the end, and she seems pleased with it too, so I'm pleased. If you enjoyed this, I'd appreciate it if you would press that like button. It really helps out the channel a lot, and if you feel like I've earned it, consider subscribing as well. Otherwise, I hope you guys have fantastic days, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon.